That's my new look.
Right. Okay, so Daddy, tell me about your dad and mom. What were they like? I mean, I know them as grandparents, but what were they like growing up?
My dad was a very firm but fun guy. Really, you didn't know it. He was sort of trying to play tricks on you all the time. Uh, but he was very quiet, especially around other people. But he's a very responsible father and husband. Uh, he grew up as an orphan. His mother died in childbirth, the youngest aunt, Flora. And so he drifted. Well, first I had mentioned before in talks with you about how he had. They were father, of course, father was gone, so he got a person to come in and look after the kids and look after the house. Well, he worked I'm trying to think of the name of the place in Mobile, big organization, as a night watchman. And anyhow, it kind of left him in bad position. So, but he did have 5 daughters. My grandfather had 5 daughters and 5 sons. And but anyhow, it turned out that Dad, after he left, did leave home away from that woman that he met, Grandpa married. He drifted among his sisters and lived with them and worked kind of worked around farms and ranches and this sort of thing until he finally settled down around the age of 15 with a fellow by the name of John Johnson, who he spent the rest of his life working for him. But he loved to garden. He really it's a necessity, really, and I think it's a necessity to have so many kids, 6 of us, and I think that's why we came along, is to help with the gardening and the turpentine trees and all that kind of stuff to, in other words, survive. That's the name of the game, survival. And he would be up early in the morning before daylight, out working and milking cows and feeding the hogs and feeding the chickens. And but he's close to the earth. He loved his work. He was very dedicated, and hearing him leave to go to work early in the morning before daylight, and coming home just about the sun was going down. Hear him yodeling, walking down about a half a mile. You could hear him all the way from the mill when it shut down. Till he got home, yodeling and singing and whistling, and quite musical. He didn't know it, but he was. But if I could picture Dad, I'd picture him in that garden. That was his real love. And of course, he had his calendar was like the farmer's almanac. He was out there killing hogs when the first frost and just, eating fresh fall greens his first frost. They weren't any good until they had some frost fall on them. Mm. But that's the kind of guy he was, pretty much like the farmer's almanac, And look back and the current, the old show we have, the Waltons. If you can imagine the Waltons being the Clark family. That was pretty much it. Except there wasn't any girls, just a bunch of boys. It was the kind of life we led, and he was a good father. We had I don't know whether his mother or his dad did this, but it was a ritual on when we read the Bible at night around the fireplace, and they did pray, and of course we did too. And I can picture him on our little back stoop, some people call it porch, but just a small porch, and he had his mirror hanging out there, and has that wash pan with hot water and his straight razor, shaving, and his razor strap. We would hand away and get to it too for disciplinary reasons. Mm-hmm. That is us, not his discipline. Dad and he enjoyed his weekends. I'd be lying if I said he didn't drink, because he did. On weekends he'd I remember one time he made some homebrew, and of course, as we got a little older, we found out what that was and got a bottle of it. And I say a bottle. There was about 12 of us shared that bottle. We didn't even finish it. We left the top off and came back later after we got through hunting and gonna have another drink, and it turned out to be a roach nest. And so that's probably the last drink I had for about 18 or 19 years.
So, how about your mother?
My mother, very, very much into books. She, of course, medicine too. She was a nurse full time, with us, because we'd always get some kind of scrape, sick. But she was the one that peddled these hookworm medicine, which we hated so badly. Once a year, after we get through our bear flea season. Wish that started on Easter Day. Didn't make a difference what day it was, as long as it was Sunday. This is April, March. You had to wait till you. Anyhow, we also used groundhog. Like that Tully and the groundhog day was very important to us as people at the Farmer's Almanac. But she was religious, very religious. Loved to sing. Not when you were there, but you could hear her outside the house, when you'd be outside and she'd be like singing up the top of the roof, and she enjoyed that, and she enjoyed the church, and she enjoyed cooking for other people. Man, did she cook? She cooked about 7 or 8 courses or whatever it was she was going to make. And company, and she planned on company every Sunday, and she kind of ruled the roost, well, all the time really, but when it came to Saturdays, that was cooking day. You kill chickens, and maybe if you weren't killing hogs, you only did that after frost, by the way, after freeze. You never kill a hog at frost on the ground. And but it was a team effort with us as a family. It was a total team. That was like the Waltons. She saw to it, supervised made sure the wood was in, and stove wood, the fireplace wood, and all that kind of stuff. And you had kindling, you had the oak, and you had the old sawmill lumber cuttings, trimmings, and but she was just an outstanding cook, outstanding nurse, and she liked her switches. She'd make you get your own switches, to discipline. So she loved it. I was her favorite. She loved to use that switch on me than she did anybody else. I don't know why. Just that turned out that way. And of course, it didn't do me any good. I'd go right back out after committing one of these awful sins of hitting one of my brothers, tearing the shirt off, doing some such crazy thing. You had to. They weren't themselves without us. In other words, we kept them busy. I'll assure you. And they tried to keep us busy, but we could still find time to get a lot of mischief, always. And but she was just a wonderful woman. My youngest uncle George, he was really swear she was an angel, and I hardly agree with him, except for that switch. Yeah, I don't know, just a wonderful lady. Very prude. She comes out of the 17th century, not the 18th and 19th, but the 17th. She lived like that, and she didn't believe in dancing. She couldn't get away with that though with me. But she had all of her brothers were musical, played an instrument, and I didn't know that she did. But I found out later she did. And I got her a keyboard and she's playing it. That surprised me. I got a few of those things in my lifetime. But just a wonderful woman.